Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am live now, so I'm going to explain a little bit. Should change the screen. Okay, so I was asked by some people because they had mistaken or false versions of Islamic history, specifically the Ottomans. And so people asked me to explain how they can learn the true history about Muslim empires, among other things. And a key thing to that, unfortunately, is because there are a lot of powers that be that want to portray Muslims in as much of a negative light as humanly possible. And so, what I'm going to do first is teach people how to shift through or sift through a bunch of propaganda so that you can dis- distinguish truth from lies. And I'm going to go through an example. So, I'm picking an article from the New York Post, okay? This is in regards to Eric Garner's murder. So this gentleman died 8 years ago on July 17th. He was held down and choked by a group of New York police officers and brutally murdered. Oh, an eyewitness videotaped this, and people were screaming. You can watch the video. I don't recommend it. It's heartbreaking, but if you're curious, I'm sure you can still find it online. And so this article came out at 1 a.m. after the gentleman was murdered. And I'm going to show you how the media uses lies and half truths and constructs a narrative to show you something completely different than what actually happens. And so, first, I'm going to read us through the whole article without interrupting so you can get the first bias feel. And then I'm going to show you what actually happened. And I'm 100, well, 90 something percent certain that CJ Sullivan, the author of this article, was aware of what they were writing. Okay? So, man dies after suffering heart attack during arrest. So, July 18, 2014 at 1 a.m. Mr. Garner, according to Wikipedia, died on the 17th at around 3 p.m. And like I said, it was videotaped, live streamed. It was pretty viral. And this actually looks like a photo from one of the eyewitnesses. Okay? So we got pictures of Mr. Garner. He's a big guy, looks happy. He's in a restaurant, likes to eat. And cops are checking up on him here, right? And what's the first sentence? Eric Garner suffered a heart attack during his arrest by the NYPD and died soon after. An obese man died of a heart attack during Thursday after he was tackled by police officers on Staten Island, cops and witnesses said. Eric Garner, 43, who weighed about 350 pounds. You know what? I'm going to just start it over. I'm not going to read the whole article. If you put the title in, Man Dies After Suffering Heart Attack During Arrest, New York Post, you can read it there if you want to pause this. I'm just going to go through step by step just because it makes my blood boil. I'll be honest. Ethnically, I'm an Arab. We tend to run a little hot. Islam's calmed me down a lot. But the natural state is I can't deal with injustice and lies. So, man dies after suffering heart attack during arrest, okay? So whose fault is it from the introduction? Not the cops, right? There's no cops mentioned in this sentence for choking him. He had a heart attack. He suffered it for unrelated reasons, is implied, right? Um, the heart attack killed him. People can die from heart attacks at any time. Is one more step removed from murder. Why? Because he was being arrested. So he's probably a bad guy. Now we scroll down, like I said, big gentleman, right? At a restaurant, likes to eat. This is all painting a portrayal. And look at the picture of the cops. He's gently touching his shoulder. It looks like they're checking up on him. They're concerned. It looks kind of routine, right? And then we'll scroll down. And to me, this looks like a screenshot from the video of his murder. And we're going to get to that in just a second. I'm just going to read the caption underneath. Eric Garner suffered a heart attack during his arrest by the NYPD and died soon after. So he suffered a heart attack. Makes it seem very passive, right? Now I'm going to show you the Wikipedia article, the photo of what happened to Mr. Garner. This is just the first photo on the killing of Garner. And if you look here, It's pretty clear the cop is choking the man to death. His hand isn't even resisting, and he's on the ground. Like, far cry from this photo, but Mr. C.J. Sullivan is writing a hit piece. So just remember this, and we'll walk through it. An obese man died of a heart attack Thursday after he was tackled by police officers on Staten Island, cops and witnesses said. So why did he die? Well, he's obese. It's his fault, right? The fatso. And police tackled him, right? Didn't choke him. They didn't do anything harmful to him. They just tackled him, and his fatness killed him. Children play football. They tackle each other. I played football in high school. Probably a lot of you did. You watch football every Sunday if you're an American. Nobody dies of a heart attack. This guy must have been really unhealthy, right? And again, no mention of choking, right? So let's go to the next sentence. Eric Garner, 43, who weighed about 350 pounds. And so, what did he weigh? We know this man's weight. We don't know he's been choked yet. Had been selling untaxed cigarettes on the street in Tompkinsville at around 5 p.m. when he was approached by officers and resisted arrest, according to the police. So what did this little paragraph tell us? He's so fat, over 350 pounds. Definitely his fault, right? We know exactly what he weighs, and that's what killed him probably, because he died of a heart attack. Again, no mention of choking. I try to stay calm, and this is like my fourth attempt at recording this, but I can't, so I'm just gonna bear with me, okay? And so remember, the goal here is to slander him as much as possible, right? Because first impressions count, and that's why all the starting stuff are building that narrative. Cop good, Garner bad, cop good, Garner bad, because in your brain they want you to think he's already guilty, and then you stay on that because that's just human instinct. It's hard to change a first impression. And then so they mentioned his alleged crime, right? Selling cigarettes, which is literally nothing. It's not an arrestable offense, okay? It's not arrestable. And so nobody really cares about it. It's like saying he died of a heart attack while being arrested for jaywalking. It doesn't make sense, but they pass it quickly. And notice they say untaxed cigarettes. Why are they saying untaxed? Because he's stealing from you, the reader. You're a taxpayer. You work hard, you pay your taxes. This man is robbing you. This big, scary, fat, black man is stealing from you. And so how do we make it sound worse? Right? Because it's a hit piece. Police approached him nicely. You're approached by police all the time, or relatively often. Nothing bad happens, and then bam, he resisted arrest. No comment about what caused. Like, how do you start resisting arrest? It's because you're being arrested. And so far, there's nothing that leads to his arrest. But, you, the reader, if you're just reading the article, is cops came tonight, talked to this gentleman, the nice cops, up here, who were very concerned for his well-being. And this belligerent black man just starts resisting. And what? According to police, right? According sounds serious and professional. It sounds more accurate. And so remember that. But multiple civilian witnesses said Garner had not been selling cigarettes and instead had been trying to break up a fight between two people who fled before officers arrived. All right? Multiple is less than all witnesses, and that's why they deliberately chose that wording, because all witnesses said he was breaking up a fight. They said, which is less official than according. It's less concrete. There's no proof of the fight happened, right? The witnesses could be his friends, they could be his associates, they could be just lying. Everybody thinks back on he didn't do nothing, he was a good boy, like those kinds of things. And that's the deliberate effort. And we've already built a pretty concrete case that this Eric Garner fellow is a bad guy. And so let's make the true story seem vague so you continue to dislike him. And that's what this next paragraph comes. Why you touching me? I didn't sell anything. I was breaking up a fight, Garner shouted, according to witnesses. So it wasn't multiple witnesses, right? The truth starts to come out a little bit, but your brain's already set. And so it's exactly what happened, right? Because it's witnesses, it's all the witnesses, and it's him. And his statements are according to witnesses, right? Not according to what happened. And also he's rude because he's shouting at police for no reason. You know, no mention of the fact that, like, why are you touching me? Why is he saying that? It's because the cops already started arresting him and being violent with him, but no mention of that, right? Like I said, the order is really key because you lock in what you believe. Observers said the incident escalated quickly. The incident escalated, right? Not the police escalated it. This is probably due to him shouting at them because, you know, he's this belligerent black man who started resisting further up in the article, and now he's shouting at police, the poor innocent police just doing their job, keeping you safe. And he got caught committing a crime because that's why he's being arrested. Remember the loose cigarettes? Observers, okay, and then they ran up on him and got rough right away. He wasn't fighting back, said Gordon Benson. And now the truth starts to come up, right? It begins to trickle. A few sentences after he shouted, but your mind is already set. So basically what happened here is cops ran up on a black man who heroically broke up a fight and started roughing him up. That's really what happened. A good Samaritan came, stopped the fight, and the cops came and just started beating on him. And he was telling them, I didn't do anything. And that's it. And then look at the next line. More than 5 cops knocked Garner to the ground, witnesses said. So if we're reading the article in order, right? It's a fat man who committed a crime, who yelled at cops, caused an incident to escalate. Which is the real order of events is black man stops the fight, cops run up, start beating on him, then he starts shouting. But again, all the details that make him look bad are put first, and the details that are somewhat true come at the end, because you're justified at yelling at cops if 5 of them start knock you to the ground when you broke up a fight. And that's why it's like it's called anchoring. It's a psychological phenomenon. We tend to hold on to beliefs we have pretty tight. And so when he was on the ground, they kept holding him by the neck. And so holding him by the neck, right? They're not choking him. They're just holding him down because he was resisting, right? Because we already heard he was resisting further up, right? Resisted arrest. So they're just holding him down because this thug keeps resisting arrest for the awful crime of stealing from you, the taxpayer. And then he just gasped, stopped moving, and they threw him on a gurney and took him away. So if you've seen the original video, which was already viral at this point, okay? He was standing, police officers choked him. They kept choking him. He told them he can't breathe. They kept choking him and choking him. He collapsed, and they continued to choke him till he died. That's what happened. That's what happened. Not they put their hand on his neck and he died of a heart attack. He just gasped quickly and then stopped moving, and the cops put him on a gurney. This man was murdered. Okay. And then the last sentence, the cherry on top. Police said Garner had more than 30 arrests. So what did we establish with 30 arrests? Nobody knows somebody who has 30 arrests, right? So we're emphasizing the hero murdered by police was a real scumbag. Not the police that had been harassing this poor man and brutalizing him constantly. No. He had a huge rap sheet. And so this is the whole article. So notice how loaded it is and how far it is from any semblance of truth. It's not technically lies because they didn't make outright false statements, right? But they left out the important things, the being choked, the being murdered, and they put the words in an order that it results in a very different impression of what's really happened. No, not one mention of the police choking him to death, which is how he died, an entire article, but we have the gentleman's weight, the fact that cigarettes were untaxed, supposedly that he resisted arrest, no mention of the fact that they had no right to arrest him in the first place. And yeah, so that's where we're at. And yeah. So that's how the media lies by portraying things in a way that they're really not. Now I'm going to show you some other examples. All right, so looks like New York Times has backtracked, but I'm going to show it anyways. Let's look at the bias, shall we? Shireen, journalist for Al Jazeera Network, was killed by gunfire. Al Jazeera says reporter killed by Israeli forces. Not what happened. Al Jazeera accuses Israeli forces of killing journalists, right? Very biased stuff. And the worst one, the New York Times was even worse than this. I'm going to try to find it. New York. So let's see if we can find. Al Jazeera said one of its journalists was killed in West Bank city of Jenin during clashes between Israeli forces and Palestinian gunmen. Uh, anyways, New York Times had an article where it said, but looks like Google's covering it up now because of the backlash. Basically, it said she died. It didn't say she was killed. And now, if we look in deeper posts, Israeli forces deliberately murdered her. New York Times journalist dies. I saw an Indian article. There we go. So India is going through some pretty severe bigotry right now against Muslims. And so we can again see the hatred. The New York Times changes its factually correct headline on Al Jazeera journalist death in the West Bank after outrage. So the journalist was shot dead, but New York Times report had said she died. Let me see if we can find the exact. Okay, so this is the title from the New York Times. Look at the criminality. Shireen Abu Akleh, trailblazing Palestinian journalist, dies at 51. So, Israel exerts incredible influence over the U.S. And so her being shot in the head by Israeli forces for no reason, straight up murdered, again, the passive thing is she died. You don't even know who killed her, why, right? They're distancing the Israelis. And look at that, a Palestinian American reporter. So it was an American citizen who was murdered, really, who was killed in the West Bank, right? Killed. So now we know she's killed. Was a household name across the Middle East. No word of the fact that the Israelis murdered her. Okay? So now let's look at journalist Ukraine. U.S. journalist killed in Ukraine. Ukrainian journalist killed in Russian strike. And so this to me is pretty clear conflict. of interest. So, killing people by airstrikes is terrible, obviously, but it's not deliberate. Like they're not targeting one person. It's not an intelligence based. Like this is a war zone. The Russians were bombing, right? And so they didn't really kill the journalist on purpose. Probably, it's not the same as shooting someone in the head. I'm not defending it. It's terrible what's happening in Ukraine. It's heartbreaking that journalists are dying. War in general is a pretty awful thing, but you don't kill someone in an airstrike unless you're targeting them in the airstrike and they weren't targeting the journalist. You know, like, and that's the big difference. 5 journalists killed in the first month of fighting in Ukraine, killed by a drone. So again, drone probably wasn't targeting the journalists.